my name is Norna Suhamiti Jamaluddin. Today, I'm going to talk about the famous case of Christine Lobato, who is falsely accused for 16 years of murder. Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Date of the crime, which is July 8, 2001. The victim, Duran Bailey, 44 years old, a homeless man, and the accused is the Christine Lobato at that time was 18 years old, which falsely accused for voluntarily manslaughter and sexual penetration of a dead body. Now, let's delve deeper. Who is Christine Lobato? She is known as Blaze by her friend, at that time was 18 years old, a drug addict and a sexual assault survivor due to this case. At that time, she told the enforcement of being attacked and using her knife to cut off the man's exposed genitals. So now, who is Duran Bailey? Duran Bailey is a homeless man who died violently in a gruesome way. So, Bailey's killer, who is now still unknown, stabbed him, slit his throat, knocked out his 6 teeth, and cut off his penis. Let's continue with the case chronology. How Christine became a suspect. A few weeks before the murder, Christine told her friends the story of she claimed that she had fought off a man who tried to assault her in the Las Vegas parking lot. 2 months later, July 8, 2001, the mutilated body of Duran Bailey is found behind a dumpster in Las Vegas. His genital has been cut off. Next, mid-July 2001, someone reported Christine's earlier story to the police, believing it matches the Bailey's murder. She is then interviewed and becomes the suspect. On July 20, Christine is arrested for the murder and sexual mutilation despite claiming she was in Paneca, Nevada, which is 200 miles away at the time of the murder. Next year, 2002, Christine is tried and convicted. No forensic entomology or scientific analysis is presented regarding the time of the death. She is sentenced to 40 to 100 years in prison. Fast forward a few years later, on 2006, she wins a partial appeal and is granted a retrial, but remains convicted on other charges. On 2017, new evidence and support from Innocence Project led to a re-examination of her alibi and trial's error. And finally, on December 2017, a judge vacates the conviction and Christine is released after serving over 15 years in prison. Or we can say 16 years. Did you know that a civil trial jury awarded Lobato $34 million in damage for violation of her rights by legal officers that caused her wrongful convictions?
Hi, Assalamualaikum, good day everyone. My name is Nurul Kaisha binti Sayruddin. I'll proceed the presentation with the investigation process. In 2001, 18 years old Christine Lobato was arrested and later convicted for the brutal murder of Duran Bailey in Las Vegas. But the investigation process that led to her conviction was deeply flawed, especially when it came to the forensic science. After Bailey's body was found behind a dumpster, the medical examiner gave a very wide time of death estimate, which is anywhere from 2 to 24 hours before the body was discovered. Investigators used this to argue that Lobato, who lived over 160 miles away, could have committed the crime and returned home. But here's the problem. There is no forensic entomology was used during the original investigation. No one documented any insect activity at the scene, even though it was July in Nevada, which is hot and ideal condition for blowflies to arrive quickly after death. And then, 8 years later, in 2009, a forensic entomologist, Dr. Gail Anderson, was brought in. She reviewed the original crime scene photos and saw what the investigator had missed, which there were no blowflies, no larvae, no eggs. That absence was scientifically important. Blowflies don't fly at night. So if none were present, it meant the body was likely placed there after sunset, just before it was found. That new timeline meant Christine Lobato could not have committed the crime. Despite this, it took several more years before the court acted. In 2017, after expert testimony on the forensic entomology findings, a judge ruled that her original defense was ineffective for not presenting this evidence. Then, her conviction was overturned and after nearly 16 years in the prison, Kristen was finally released.
My name is Shaurana Mizat Christina, and I will be presenting on the next part, which is the role of forensic entomology. Forensic entomology is the study of insect activities in criminal investigation to estimate the time of death or post-mortem interval. The presence or absence of insects can reveal when a person died, and the insect types indicate the condition and the environment of the body at the time of death. When death occurs, blowflies are commonly found as they arrive within minutes or hours to colonize a body. So this picture shows the blowfly life cycle. By examining the age and the stage of insect larvae found on the body, they can determine how long the body has been exposed to the environment. The problem in this case is that the prosecutors claim that Duran Bailey was killed early in the morning of 8 July 2001, and Kristen Lobato had an alibi where she was 200 miles away at Panaca, Nevada during at that time. So there was no physical evidence that linked her to the crime. From the expert observation, there was no insect eggs or larvae are found on Bailey's dead body, which is unusual in Las Vegas summer because larvae will grow faster in a warmer temperature. Three forensic entomologists have concluded that the body had been exposed after sunset, where flies don't lay eggs because flies are inactive during night. So Bailey likely died late at night on 8 July. So let me tell you why does forensic entomology is important in this case. If Bailey really died late at night and Kristen Lobato was already in Panaca, she could not have committed murder that day. And her alibi was confirmed and she was proved innocent where she had been wrongfully convicted based on the evidence found.
Hi, good day everyone. My name is Nurina Ayuni binti Muhammad Isham. Now, I will continue by explaining the timeline of legal proceeding events in Kristen Lobato case, spanning from her arrest in 2001 to her release in 2018. In 2001, Kristen Lobato was arrested after police linked her to a murder case. This connection was largely based on a previous story she told about defending herself during a sexual assault, which investigators misinterpreted as a confession to a murder. In 2002, she was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 40 to 100 years in a prison. 4 years later, in 2006, she was retried and found guilty of voluntary manslaughter instead. Her new sentence was reduced from 13 to 45 years served in a prison. In 2009, the Nevada Supreme Court upheld her second conviction on appeal, maintaining the verdict and sentence. And by 2010, Lobato filed a habeas corpus petition. She argued that her legal counsel was ineffective and presented alibi evidence showing that she was in Panaca, far from the crime scene, at the time of the murder. In 2017, a district court agreed with her petition and granted a new trial. The court cited a poor legal representation and a new forensic evidence that significantly weakened the prosecution case. And finally, early 2018, all charges were dismissed and Kristen Lobato was released after serving more than 50 years in a prison. To conclude, the case of Kristen Lobato demonstrates the serious consequences of investigative bias, incorrect forensic analysis, and the disregard of harmless evidence. Despite a lack of physical evidence and credible alibis, her lawful arrest was ultimately overturned through the application of forensic entomology and increased legal review. Her release highlights the importance of science and justice, the dangers of tunnel vision in investigation, and the urgent need for fairness and honesty within the criminal justice system. So that's all from our group. Thank you for your listening.